Hi, my name is Ann V. Brady, and I'll be reading an excerpt from the book A New Beginning, the story of my adoption, life, and service, illustrated by Eric C. Brady. Chapter 14. I found out that the state laboratory was looking for a microbiologist. I went to the state job site and found that the state was looking for microbiologists for their TB lab. I filled out the application and included a copy of my certification as an MT and RM. I wrote to my college and requested they forward my college transcripts to the ADPH Human Resources Office. It took a while, but I received a postcard with a date to take the test for microbiologist. I had a date and time and the place in Montgomery where I was to take the test, with others with others applying for state jobs. Many were taking different tests, such as prison guard, truck driver, to name a few. I passed the test and was given a date and time for an interview for the job. When I went for my interview, I left, I left early as I wasn't sure of traffic or how long it would take me to find the laboratory. I arrived early, so I sat in the car until it was 15 minutes before my interview. I met with Nancy, who was in charge of the TB laboratory. Nancy gave me the grand tour of the lab and introduced me to the microbiologist that I would be working with if I got the job. Nancy then took me to a conference room where I met with other lab managers. They all asked me questions. After the interview, they told me they would contact me if I got the job. I was pleased to find out I had the job. I did tell them I had to give MAO a 2-week notice, which they agreed to. I typed up my 2-week notice and handed it in to Human Resources. I was surprised when the other employees came to ask me why I was leaving. The director of MAO came to see me and told me she was sorry that I was leaving. She did ask me if they found my replace. She did ask me if they found my replacement, would I come back temporarily to train my replacement? I told her I would check with my boss. We came to an agreement when they found my replacement. I would come in on Wednesday nights to train my replacement. Clinic ran late on Wednesday nights and it wouldn't interfere with my new job. I started my job as a microbiologist in 2012. I started my training in picking up specimens and logging them into the TB patient database and processing specimens for culture. We worked in a negative pressure room. We wore a waterproof disposable gown, mask, and disposable nitrile gloves under a Class 3 hood. We had to digest specimens that we received from the hospitals and clinics. We used special chemicals that digest mucus to isolate mycobacteria and microorganisms. We didn't we didn't digest certain specimens. We had to take those precautions because TB is very contagious. I was there several weeks when I felt faint. I went to sit down until I felt better. I woke up on the floor being attended by AMTs. I was taken to the hospital by ambulance. I spent several days in the hospital with pneumonia. I was finally able to go home with antibiotics. Before I left the hospital, I asked a nurse about a pneumonia vaccine. She told me that I could only get it if I was at least 65 or had a chronic illness that would make me susceptible to pneumonia. I informed her that I had COPD, and she reluctantly got the vaccine and vaccinated me before I was discharged from the hospital. I was able to go back to work once my doctor cleared me. I did have to make an appointment with a cardiologist to find out why I fainted. I was given a stress test, which I passed with flying colors. I had to stop the test because my legs started to hurt. They gave me the tilt test. I lay at an angle strapped to a table. They wanted to see if I passed out. I told the technician that I would be able to let him know when I was going to pass out. He didn't believe me until I told him. After I told him I was going to pass out, I woke up laying prone on the table. The doctor told me that I had no blood pressure. Then it came back when I was prone. She told me to eat more salt and buy some pressure socks to keep from passing out. I did as the doctor said, and I haven't passed out since. MAO finally found my replacement, and I started spending my Wednesdays at MAO training her. She was a quick study and learned a lot. Once she was trained, I would get phone calls from the phlebotomist complaining because she wasn't doing all the favors I used to do for them. It seems I had spoiled them. They wanted me back, and I told them, sorry, but I'm not leaving my new job. I learned a lot of new things as TB procedures, such as processing, making AFB slides, and culturing and testing TB specimens, had changed over the years. I, I joined Ancestry.com in 2003. Mike joined Ancestry.com after I did, but he was the first one in our family to take a DNA test. I made my family tree, but I only had information on my maternal line. I had hoped to eventually find my birth father. I was searching for a John Houlihan who was born in Rhode Island between 1924 and 1926. I had a lot of starts and stops. I finally took the plunge in 2013 when the ethnicity DNA test was $110. Over the years, my DNA estimates have changed as some people have their DNA tested, as more people have their DNA tested. I found a lot of new relatives and ancestors. I still couldn't find any relatives that brought me close to finding my birth father. I was sometimes able to help others searching for birth family. I joined different groups on Yahoo and other search groups. Ed and I saw Celtic Woman sing on PBS. We loved to watch and listen to them sing Irish songs in English and Gaelic. Ed and I went to see Celtic Woman concerts several times when they came to the Montgomery Performing Arts Center. We stopped going to see them in concert because they started singing more popular songs and less Irish songs. The reason we went to see them was to hear Irish music. Bob told me that he didn't understand why I did the DNA. He was always concerned about privacy issues. He had legitimate reasons, but Ancestry and other genealogy sites do their best to protect their customers. Michael took me to see Weird Al Yankovic in the Montgomery Performing Arts ceremony on his The Apocalypse tour. In the TB lab, I worked alongside Sharon, who was there longer than me. We became good friends as well as co-workers. We collected the specimens from shipping and receiving. Sharon helped with the processing, while I trained logging in specimens and creating labels. After several weeks, I was trained in processing specimens and whether we digested the specimens and for how long. Whether we digested the specimens depended on if the specimens were sputum, urine, CSF, etc. We then centrifuged the specimens and then started the real work. We would make AFB slides and put them on a slide warmer to kill the mycobacteria. Then we would plate the mycobacteria onto different media so we could grow the bacteria and then run tests. I had a lot to learn as a lot had changed since I had worked in the TB laboratory at Fitzsimmons AMC in the 1990s. Our boss Nancy worked hard and expected the best from us, but she would celebrate our birthdays each month. At Christmas, she had our Christmas party either in the break room or at her husband's organization's fishing lodge by the water. It was impressive, and Nancy was a great host. Sharon would help me occasionally when I needed help or clarification. When we had a positive smear result, we would have to call the Department of Health and report a positive smear result, the patient's name, date of birth, facility, doctor, and whether the smear was rare, small, moderate, or numerous. If the test and growth showed it was TB, we had to call the Department of Health immediately with the results. This was so the doctor/facility and the patient could be notified and the patient quarantined. In 2014, Ed came to me with a suggestion. Ed said he wanted to check out being a furry. I wasn't too sure about it, but then I decided why not? If we didn't like it, we could always stop being furries. First, we had to look at what type of animal we would like to represent it. I liked the wolf, but Ed and I decided a wolf's head would be too large for me, so we picked a fox for me, and Ed picked an otter. Ed did the makeup for our personas. The first convention we went to was Dragon Con in Atlanta, Georgia. We stayed in a hotel outside of Atlanta. It got tiring at times, but we had fun. We found a great band that played Celtic music, Emerald Rose. Below are pictures of Ed and me with our makeup and prosthesis. I've got ears on that moved and makeup on, and Ed has makeup on and uh, fur for paws. And the next picture is me with just my ears on and no makeup next to Hagrid. Well, it's actually a person who's as tall as Hagrid was in Harry Potter. And I just saw him and he just looked dead on like Hagrid from the movie Harry Potter. We bought the whole collection of their CDs while we were there. We went dressed up as a fox and otter to have lunch at the Hard Rock Cafe. One of the customers kept staring at us. Turns out she thought Ed was black. She was so embarrassed. The owner of the cafe asked someone to take his picture with us. He thought we looked cool and said he would put it on his wall of fame. The waitress even had her picture taken with us. While we had fun at DragonCon, it wasn't a furry convention. People kept asking what comic book character we were. Sometimes when Ned and I would go out to eat, we would bring Bob with us. Our favorite place was Fortune Lucky, a Chinese buffet-style restaurant. The food was excellent. Unfortunately, it closed. We found Ding House Restaurant. The owners were three Chinese sisters. The food was great, and the sisters were very friendly. They had a projector in the restaurant, and if you asked them, they would show videos of Japan and China. Some were of scenery, how they made bread or shows. It was fascinating to watch. It was fascinating to watch these videos while eating. It was a fun way to learn of their culture. We have gone several times to Tokyo Japanese Steakhouse and Sushi Bar, usually to celebrate a wedding anniversary. The food is great and so is the service. There are two restaurants in one. One side is just a restaurant. The other side is where the chefs put on a show while cooking your meals. Okay, that's enough for today. And I hope everybody has a happy weekend and enjoy your weekend. Thank you for listening to me.